Dave, as you're putting together your 53-man roster, how much is thinking only about 2023, and how much is, okay, this guy may be better in 2023, but I think this guy, if we cut him, we're not gonna be able to sign him, but his long-term's there. How much goes into all that?
Yeah, it's definitely part of the conversation. It's probably one of the more difficult parts of this decision-making process is weighing the immediate versus the future. And, at the same time, we prescribe to a philosophy that doesn't matter where you come from, doesn't matter who you are, what it is, like you earn a spot on the team based on your performance on the field. And so you gotta be mindful of that too. And what message that sends. And so it's a part of the discussion. At the end of the day, the performance is gonna be the biggest part that we put into making the decision on the roster.
Dave, we're at the end of training camp today. Any progress on with Josh Jacobs, and we're kind of getting to that nitty-gritty area where a game is coming up.
Yeah.
Is there a reason for hope that he'll be out there against the Broncos?
Yeah, nothing new to add right now on that, so we're just keep pushing forward.
Dave, is the worst case scenario kind of like what's going on in Indianapolis with Jonathan Taylor, or is that an option you're just trying to avoid altogether, or could a trade even be an option at some point if this continues?
I don't know the exact details of what's happening in Indianapolis. We're focused on what's happening here, and so any trade speculation, all that stuff. Organizationally, that's nothing that we would ever address on any player. There's no advantage to doing that. So, like I said, we're just going to keep pushing forward. We're focused on our situation here, putting the roster together the best way that we can to field a competitive team, and that's where we're at.
Dave, this offseason you said multiple times, kind of the long-term vision is building, the homegrown talent up. What would you say is a short-term measure for this season in terms of what would you call a season success? What result are you looking for?
In terms of like the person with the homegrown talent, are you talking about?
Just in terms of the team as a whole, individually.
Yeah, I think we measure on wins and losses, and so I think that's definitely a part of it. And I think another part of it in that is we'd love to see our young players, that we've invested in continue to grow, continue to improve throughout the season. Where you're getting to the end of the season and you have a lot of guys that have contributed to a winning season, and that's really what we're focused on and how we're going to gauge it.
Along those lines, you've been able to assess your rookie class up till this point. Now some games are going to be getting on their ledger. How excited are you about where they are right now and what the possibilities are for the rookie class this year?
We are excited about what these guys have done over the last few months, but also no different than we're excited about the veteran guys that are here as well. I think we've worked on building a roster where there's competition at every position, at every level. I think we're seeing that kind of come to fruition now. So this is exciting, for this idea.
For the two of you, you did your job when good players are gonna get cut, when your job's difficult. Do you feel that way? Do you feel, because it certainly appears, from my perspective, that the roster was greatly enhanced.
Yeah, I think we, we're coming down to the wire here and starting to really look into those, those individual position battles and those individual slots. And I think we both feel that this year, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. And that's, again, like you said, that's by design. You hope to have built competition where it's not always clear cut. And I'd say we have some tougher decisions to make this year than we did last year based on the level of competition and how the players have performed up to this point.
This question's kind of for both of you, just in terms of dealing with this rookie class, not only with what they've been able to do on the field, but just with how they're dealing with player engagement with other coaches, the development of these guys for the time you got to do now.
Right. I think, first of all, our college staff did a great job of, going out and identifying guys with high character, with high passion for football, who are great teammates. And so excited that, we had a really good experience with them here, acclimating to our system, learning our culture, learning from the coaches and also the veteran players that are here. And so, just excited to see them continue to grow into the player that we envisioned them to be when we drafted them.
Yeah, and I think we're really excited with some of the strides we've made just with player development in general here. We've invested a lot of resources and a lot of time in building up our player development department. Having clear objectives, really focused on growing the player on the field, but growing the person too, because there's a lot of things that you handle when you come into the league that are outside of just being out on the practice field. And that's something that I know is important to Champ and I, and important to the organization. And we're really excited about where that department is going and how it's impacting the team.
Since bringing Jimmy into the program, in what ways has he mirrored the values that you guys want to construct this franchise around? What's unique to the way he approaches the position and everything that comes with it?
Yeah, I'd say an even keeledness, ability to stay calm and poised, and just be a steady influence on the offense. And Jimmy has a mental toughness that we look for in all players that we want to bring in. We talk about being smart, tough, dependable, being able to perform at a high level in pressure situations, and we think Jimmy embodies a lot of that. He's embodied through his career. We've seen that as we've continued to grow together since we've signed him, and so we feel like he's a good leader for what we value at the position and what we value in terms of team building too.
I know it's way earlier in Hayden's process, but some of those traits that you just talked about feels like he possesses as well, Hayden O'Connell. What's your assessment of where he is right now in his process?
Still developing. It's like most of the young guys that we have on our football team now. I think he's done a good job of learning the system and gaining some trust with our coaching staff and with his teammates. And that's, as a young player, that's all you want to do during this time. And so like he creates a quiet poise, in the huddle prior to every snap, and I think our players appreciate that about him.
What are you guys' observations so far, takeaways about the guys competing at linebacker so far this past month?
Yeah, it's a competitive group. We like the group that we have at linebacker. They all have a little bit of a different skill set. Robert's come in from Pittsburgh and been a guy that has been as advertised. In a lot of ways, I think he's exceeded some expectations, just in terms of his ability to run the defense, his ability in pass coverage, his athleticism, some of the things that you don't always know on film until you see him on the grass and you feel it and see him moving around. So he's done a good job. Divine's taken another step that we're excited about. And then we have Luke, who's again another guy that's grown. Amari showed up a little bit in pass coverage and things like that. Curtis, Bolton was a guy that developed as a disruptive kicking game player for us a year ago and really led those units, and he's taken another step. And Drake Thomas was all over the field the other night in the Rams game, racking up tackles and things of that nature. And so anybody on? Oh, and Maga, who we brought back, and he goes out and he shows up in the kicking game. And so it's a young, energetic, high energy group that we feel like kind of their skill sets play off each other, and they fill some different roles. And so it's a group we're excited to continue to work with.
I think also they kind of embody the personality of their position coach. AP has done a tremendous job working with those guys and empowering them to be leaders of that defense.
I think some of those descriptors you guys use, people would apply to the full defense. I mean, it seems like they've kind of been, it's a new look. It's been eye-opening throughout training camp and against some of the other teams. What's excited you guys most about seeing this new look defense up close for the last month?
Yeah, I think a big emphasis that we put on the defense was making plays on the football. And we've seen that so far here in training camp. It showed up in the joint practices. It showed up in the games. And obviously, it doesn't really mean anything until we carry it out on the field. But at the same time, that was an emphasis that we wanted to focus on in training camp, and it showed up. So you have to be excited about that, and you have to feel good about it.
I think there's a collective trust that you see amongst that unit that's growing, and to watch those guys celebrate after big plays, it's exciting. It tells you a little bit about their brotherhood. The older guys are pouring into the younger guys. The younger guys are eager to learn, and I think that's what you're seeing kind of manifest itself on the football field.
You were talking about development, and you sometimes forget that Nate Hobbs and Trayvon Merritt are young players in their own right.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of put some veterans around them with Marcus Epps and Marcus Peters. Do you feel like they're on track to be what this organization felt like where they were going to be when they got here?
Yeah, we hope so. They've definitely made strides in terms of their consistency and their performance. And I think that the two guys that you mentioned, Marcus Epps and Marcus Peters, like those guys have a certain standard that they take pride in how their room performs on a day-to-day basis in practice, and that's contagious to the other guys in the room. And so it's been an important part, I think, for the whole unit's development to have guys like that in the room that demand a certain standard and have a certain expectation, and that's been exciting to see.
Last year, you guys were trying to set the standard, and you had a Max, you had a Colton, but you didn't have a lot of leaders. This year, that's what the players are talking about. They're mad, they're ticked off, whatever. How much better is this football team because the players are setting the standard, it isn't the GMs and the coaches?
I would say that anytime that your players are empowered and they become the voice, because they are the ones that are executing things on the football field, where they hold each other to a higher standard, I think that's where success lies. And kind of to be a little bit contradictory to what you said, I think those leaders were already here. And so now we're engaging them and pulling them out, and they're stepping into their purpose, and they're controlling their communication to their group, and they're taking ownership into their responsibility and their task on the football field, and that's important for any team to win.
What have you guys seen from Zamir White? Just kind of, he's gotten a larger opportunity since Jacobs hasn't been practicing, obviously. What have you seen in his development since you drafted him?
Yeah, definitely, a lot of growth and maturity. I think if, I was going to pinpoint a specific area where we've seen a lot of growth in him is in the passing game. As a route runner, in pass protection, his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield, and that's because he puts a lot of extra work in. His position coach, KP, demands a lot from those guys, and you'll see Zamir after practice, he's either on the jugs machine or KP's throwing him balls, and he's put a lot of extra time in. I think that's one thing with young players that maybe is the biggest hurdle for a lot of guys to figure out is, what does it take for me personally? What do I have to do extra? How much time do I have to spend individually to show growth in the areas that I want to improve in? And that might be different than the guy next to him. And finding your own style, what it takes for you. And I think Zamir's done that, both on the field, and then when it comes to the playbook and things like that, he's poured into it and he's starting to see the results. And that's the fun part of football, is when you see young players grow in those areas. And when you guys have talked to him, he's a great young man, very humble, very hardworking, and so we've been excited to see that growth from him.
We talked to Josh yesterday about the third quarterback rule and how that could be employed. Does it weigh into your decision making at all in terms of roster building, and I guess how could that be used going forward?
You want to hit that? I mean, it's not. I wouldn't say we have 3 quarterbacks on the roster, and so obviously it's something 4 counting Garbers. In terms of deciding whether we're going to keep 3 and that rule. I think it's more about the construction of your room and what you have in that room and how those different pieces play off of each other, more than just saying like we're gonna use that rule to our advantage or some strategic element to it. I think it's more just about the construction of the room, and so we'll see. We'll see how this pans out over the next week, and if it ends up at 3, then we'll have 3.
Well, you know what it is? It's more so like the spirit of that rule. I think is for the right reason.
Yeah.
How it's deployed across the league this season, we'll see that as it comes. So we're excited about our entire group, and watching them compete and watching them work together and watching them be an extension of Josh has really been exciting.
What have you guys seen from Renfrow this camp?
Seen a lot of good stuff, and I think he's feeling good, and I think he was battling a lot of things last year. Just in terms of feeling good on a daily basis, and he's felt good this year. And I think what we've seen is a player that I know that when we watched before we took this job, and you're studying the roster and things like that, a player that is very hard to cover, can produce in the red zone, is a really good player on third down, and again, it wasn't for a lack of him wanting to do it, he just physically didn't always feel the best last year. And so it's been great to see him feel great, play great, and we're ecstatic to see that development, see that growth. And he's a hard worker. He's a great kid. He embodies a lot of things that we value as a team, and so we're ready to see him rip this year and have a great year.
Having a full year with the Raiders and also having your full draft allotment, how much better is that compared to last year when you stepped in the door in January, and now being able to try to take that step forward in 2023 with the franchise?
Yeah, a lot more continuity and a lot more comfort, with really every process and with knowing the team and having a better understanding of each individual player and, areas that we need to, improve, areas that we need to, areas that we feel good about. I mean, I just think there's a higher confidence throughout the building. There's a higher confidence within the team. There's a higher confidence within the coaching staff because expectations are understood, standards are understood. The way that we do things and how we prepare, people understand why we do those things. So, there's a big part of growth is for people understanding the why. And that's whether it's, people in the scouting department understanding that, players understanding that, coaches understanding that, the whole building understanding the why and being unified in that way. And I feel like that's a big step that we've taken, and we're excited to see, how it pays off here this year.
One more, Adam?
As you, first of all, how close do you guys feel you are to being ready for Tuesday, and how much can things change? But I guess the bigger picture question would be, how much does versatility matter in terms of, hey, this guy might be a better player, but this guy's more versatile, can help us out? How much does that weigh into the decision?
Yeah, well, we're doing a lot of work upstairs right now from the scouting standpoint. Our pro department, Dwayne Joseph, our pro scouts, Jordy Hine, Ben Chester, our scouting assistants, Champ. Really, it's all hands on deck right now, evaluating all 31 other rosters, having an understanding of what players are on the bubble, what players could be available in trades, what veterans could be cut. And so there's a lot of film being watched. There's a lot of evaluations taking place. There's a lot of conversations about our roster compared to other players that may be available. That's the nature of the business. That's the competitive aspect of it. And so there's a lot of that work going on that we feel good about. We feel like we're in a good spot. There's a lot of conversations about so many different things from a strategic standpoint, whether it's who's on the 53 to who's on the practice squad, where there's an area we may want to improve in those two areas. So a lot of those conversations, and I'll let you speak to the versatility piece.
I'll just say it's never an easy time, right? Like, there's 1,200 guys across the league that are gonna probably get waived, come Tuesday. And so it's not easy because these people have, they've been investing into our football team and the success of our team. Some of these people won't be with us, and that's the reality of it. And we hope that, they have opportunities elsewhere. There will be some tough decisions that we ultimately have to make. But, Dave and Josh are gonna always make the right decisions for the Raiders, and ultimately that's what we'll accomplish on Tuesday.
But to your, let me just finish up so get Adam's question answered. I think the versatility piece is it increases your value. If you can fill in for two spots, whether it's on the offensive line or you can play inside and outside a corner or whatever it may be, you can a linebacker that has value on all three downs. Like any versatility, the more you can do, you increase your value, you increase your chances to make the team. And so that's definitely something that we look at because you only get 53. And so the more people that you have on the team that can fill multiple roles throughout a season where there's going to be injuries and things like that is something that we talk a lot about, when we're working through the decision-making process.
All right, last one, Paul.
What have you guys seen out of Tyree in the past week that he's been out there?
Well, it's been good to get him out there, and he worked really hard in the rehab process. Our athletics training staff, led by Chris Cortez, has done a really good job of kind of laying out for us. Here's how the process is going to go. Here's why it's going to go this way, and taking some baby steps or incremental steps here along the way to be patient and make sure when he got out on the field he was ready to go. He hasn't played, he's like 3 practices into playing the NFL, and he's practicing against a bunch of guys that have had a bunch of practices under their belt. And so there's going to be that learning curve, but he's long, he's explosive, he's fast. Now he just needs to learn how to play from a technique standpoint at the NFL level, and understand he's still learning the scheme, what the calls mean. I mean, there's a big learning curve there's a hurdle that he went over to get on the field, and now there's 1, 2, 3, 4 more hurdles in terms of learning how to play the run, learning how to play certain pass defenses, the line game, stunts, twists, all that stuff. So he's got a lot to do. He's got a lot of work to do here in front of him, but it's been we're obviously excited to have him out on the field.
I would say he's determined.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.